Welcome back to our chronological journey through God's Word in 2025. Today we are in Genesis chapters 35 through 37. I'm so grateful you're joining me here. This is a new adventure for me, learning to make these videos and posting them. I just want to share God's Word, so I'm grateful to have you here with me. So we are in chapters 35, 36, and 37 in Genesis today. And we always start with the content of God's Word, because we must know what it says before we can learn how it applies to our lives and how our lives need to line up with God's purpose, plan, and desire for our lives, how we need to live in accordance with His Word. So start with the content, always the content. Chapter 35, Jacob, you remember if you read chapter 34 that Jacob had settled in Shechem once he returned to Canaan, and his daughter Dinah was raped by a young man in Shechem, and then his sons Levi and Simeon took revenge for their sister by murdering all the men of Shechem. So now in chapter 35, Jacob is moving. He is going down near Bethel, and he goes to Bethel, and God blesses him there, and he also repeats to Jacob the same promise that was first given to Abraham in Genesis chapter 11. God had promised Abraham that he would make him a great nation, that he would bless all the peoples of the earth through him, and that he would give him the land of Canaan as an inheritance for him and his descendants forever. And so that promise had been repeated to Isaac, Abraham's son, and it is now repeated, not for the first time, but repeated again to Jacob in Bethel, where he is worshiping the Lord. And then after that happens, Rachel dies near Bethel in childbirth, giving birth to Benjamin. And then Isaac, at the end of the chapter, Isaac also dies just from old age, and his sons Esau and Jacob bury him together in the same cave, the same land that Abraham had purchased, and where he and Sarah had been buried as well. Chapter 36 is just the genealogy of Esau's family, the leaders of the family, his sons, and how they settled. They settled in the land of Edom. And I did make sometimes these chapters that have lots of notes. Not lots of notes, lots of names seem to be boring, don't have a lot to do with us, and it's easy to get bogged down on them. But I did write in the corner of in the margin of my Bible a few things I wanted to share with you about this chapter. First, according to verse 7 in chapter 36, Esau was greatly blessed with wealth. He had been very angry with Jacob for stealing his blessing, and rightly so. But nonetheless, God blessed him greatly, even though he wasn't the one through whom the Messiah would come. He wasn't the one the promise went to. He still was very wealthy and very blessed. And then the other note I made was from chapter 36, of course, from verses 15 through 17, where it talks about his descendants were chiefs or princes, and that meant that they just had great power and wealth. So again, just pointing out that even though Esau was not the one through whom the promise continued, he was still greatly blessed of the Lord. Then moving on, chapter 37, our last chapter for today, is where we begin learning about the story of Joseph. Joseph, of course, is the 11th son of Jacob, and he is one of two sons of Rachel, his favorite wife. And as such, Joseph was treated as a favorite son. He was given what we know of as the coat of many colors. Whatever it was certainly special. And so his brothers knew he was a favorite, and that already didn't go over well, as favoritism seldom does. But in chapter 37, then we learn that Joseph has some dreams, and he tells his brothers his dreams, and then later his father as well. And the dreams seem to indicate that his brothers will serve him, and that just makes them more upset with him. And so when he goes out to the field looking for them at one point, sent there by his father Jacob, his brothers decide to sell him into slavery, and he is taken down to Egypt to become a slave. And that is the end of chapter 37. Joseph probably thinks nothing good is ever going to come from his life, because this has gotten to be so awful right now. So that's our content in chapters 35, 36, and 37. And then we always move on to the same three questions that we are asking ourselves and answering all year as we go through God's Word. And that is, what do I learn about God? What do I learn about myself? And what do I need to obey from God's Word, from what I learned, or what do I need to change in my life? And that last question, sometimes it's not going to be something new, especially if you've been a believer for a long time. It might just be a reminder to be faithful in things you are already doing. So don't think that you always have to have some sort of a, wow thing to obey. Sometimes it's just small acts of faithfulness, and that's great. God's Word says that we're called to be faithful. So let's be faithful. So as we go through these questions again, I'm not sharing all of my answers because I want you to focus on your answers. The important thing is, what is God teaching you? What do you learn about God? What do you learn about yourself? This matters because you need to be in right relationship with Him. And then what do you need to obey or change in your life? Like I said, I don't like to share all of my answers, but I do like to share usually one a day, just to kind of give you some ideas of how these passages are applying to me or what I am learning from them. And this is the one I am going to share with you today, my answer for the third question: what do I need to obey or change in my life? And the truth is that I am very susceptible, probably like most people, to taking God's blessings for granted, or even not even noticing when He answers prayer, or when He, does things that just give me a great blessing in some way. And so this is what I wrote in my journal. I need to learn to ask and answer the question, how do I see God working in my life today? And I've been asking myself that question, not perfectly, off and on, looking for how God is working in my life today. And I think it's a great question to ask myself. But when I was preparing to film this morning, to record this video, I thought to myself, even better than asking and answering that question, I need to start writing it down. So that's what I learned from this passage. And so I wanted to share that with you. Now, before we close today, I do want to remind you, if you are not on my email list, at the end of every book as we go through the Bible, I will be sending out to my email subscribers a one-page overview of that book of the Bible after it is finished in our chronological journey. The book of Job has already gone out to my subscribers. The link to sign up is in the show notes. And if you have not signed up yet, and you're not on my list, and you want that first book, or you've missed others, and you want to get them all, they are always going to be in the treasure trove, which is password protected for my email subscribers. A lot of freebies in there and other topics as well. So if you're interested in studying more about God's Word, I try to keep these simple and basic to help you get started in God's Word. Sign up below. And thank you for joining me. I'll look forward to being back with you again tomorrow as we continue going through God's Word, looking in Genesis, picking up in Genesis chapter 38, and looking more into the life of Joseph. Thank you, and may God bless you.